Psychology is really at the core of branding and visual identity. Whether it's your brand, mission and values, what you want to convey to your audience, you really need to take a second and think about what that message is and how to best convey that.
And branding is all about creating meaningful connections with an audience that your charity or organisation is trying to connect with. So now I get the connection there. Yeah, absolutely. Hi friends, welcome to a new episode of Between Me and You. Now today I've got Reveille, a Trinidad-born graphic designer who's illustrator and social media manager, and your expertise is really in brand identity and visual design. What I'm really interested in digging into today is the connection between your design skills and also your background in international relations and psychology. You're passionate about blending cultural influences into design solutions to craft impactful visual narratives. Let's get into a conversation. Rev, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, I really enjoy I think it's important to bring cultural backgrounds and that into design solutions and really connect with whatever audience you're trying to connect with.
Absolutely. When we first met, I do remember learning a lot about the background in psychology that you have. And so I think really what I'd love to get to in this conversation is a deeper understanding of how the understanding of psychology can connect with branding and hopefully deliver a better brand as a result. So let's start with that. How does psychology play a role in branding and visual design?
Psychology is really at the core of branding and visual identity. Whether it's your brand, mission and values, what you want to convey to your audience, you really need to take a second and think about what that message is and how to best convey that. And it even extends to something like typography, imagery for your brand. Colors are really important as well. All around that comes together to convey the best message to your audience and what you want to get across and how to connect with that audience.
And taking a step back, I might be listening or watching this and actually just need a recap of what is psychology?
Psychology is the study of the human mind and human connection.
And branding is all about creating meaningful connections with an audience that your charity or organisation is trying to connect with. So now I get the connection there. Yeah, absolutely. Psychological triggers, how do they influence donation-based branding?
In psychology, there's something called the identifiable victim effect, which is really important and it's a core element in donation-based branding, which means that you really want to create a story or storytell. Instead of saying millions of people need your donations, you want to tell a story and visually as well, where you focus on one person. So Anna needs a donation to start a business, for example, and that's what the audience connects with most, and that's what makes them feel compelled to donate.
So really bring it down to human connection. And I think you've done that very successfully for a client of ours, actually, Microloan Foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
The Christmas campaign.
Yeah. They do really well with focusing on one person and bringing their story to life and focusing on what helps them and how your donations help each individual.
We work with both non-profit and also profit-making organisations that do good. In what way does branding differ from corporate branding? Are there some sort of key differences?
So I would say for corporate branding, you're focusing on standing out in the market. You're focusing on bringing your brand to life and making sure it's identifiable. But I would say the human-to-human connection is it's the difference, making it seem warm and friendly and approachable. When you're asking people to donate, you want them to feel connected to what the story you're trying to tell.
So to flip it in a way, can corporate or profit-driven organizations learn from non-profit?
Definitely. I would say when people feel connected to your brand, they want to help you, they want to get your story out there.
Because that reminds me, we've recently rebranded a care agency that focused on living at home and how life at home is better. And they are obviously focused on doing good work, but they also need to make money and make profit. And I think we've brought a real human element to that brand as well. So
Yeah.
there should be, would you say there should be a connection between what you can learn of what's great for charities, but also what's great for profit or corporate organizations too?
Yeah, I would say instead of focusing on mainly profit, focus on the human connection, warmth, making your brand approachable, and that's what people would want to endorse.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to charity branding for a bit. Are there any key visual elements to make a charity's branding effective?
Yeah, let's take social media, for example. You want to make sure you're clear and concise with charity branding, asking people to donate using strong visual elements, telling a story, focusing on one person and getting their story out there, making sure you're really clear with your message.
And you've been managing a lot of social media and content creation for clients at me&you. And often that's a lot of content to create. Have you seen what works and also what doesn't work?
Tailoring your message to each social platform really helps get your message out there. So I would say using LinkedIn, for example, for partnerships, collaborations, really what LinkedIn is for. Whereas for Instagram, you'd use that to make a strong visual impact, telling a story, getting individual messages out there. And for X, for example, it's really good for something short and concise, like an impact stat or something short and to the point, I would say.
Yeah. Have you ever worked on a campaign or communication where social media doesn't work in isolation? Often the most effective then connects up with some print media or video and other bits and pieces. Can you tell us a bit more about that kind of work?
It's really good to get the message out there and make sure it reaches the very specific audience that you need to reach.
And have you seen that actually work in practice? That sort of connection between traditional stuff, which sometimes people ignore, so print media, for example, connecting to online and campaigns.
Yeah, that worked really well for Microloan Foundation's Christmas campaign. We sent out a direct mail. We want to reach the widest audience as possible and make sure that, and it's also really good to have print media so people feel more connected and it's a bit more personable. Sometimes it's the best for people who want to donate and they open their mail and it's good to have something tangible for them to read and to connect with.
So in a practical sense, how does your knowledge of psychology influence the decisions you make when creating visual branding?
Yeah, as psychology is really the core of visual branding, getting your message out there. It's about perception and evoking emotion in your customers, clients, audience. So, for example, color. Um, Color really has effect emotionally on an audience. So, for example, a mental health charity, they might use colors like blues or warm tones that really convey a sense of connection, warmth, calmness, and that's what you want to get across, and that ties in with your brand message and values. And typography works similarly. For example, a children's charity, you want to use something warm, friendly, approachable.
No, thank you. I can now appreciate more of how your background in psychology really influences and adds value to the branding work that you deliver. So we'll be looking to see more of that in the future. Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's episode of Between Me and You. If you found any topics interesting and engaging, please continue the conversation in the comments area below. Rev, how can people stay in touch with you if you want them to?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. my name, Reveille Paul. You can find me on social media, and you can email me or get in touch with me and you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bye for now.